Welcome back, deep divers. This time, we're trading in our scuba gear for tuxedos.
Sounds intriguing.
We're going deep into the world of James Bond. 1973's Live and Let Die, to be exact.
Roger Moore's first outing is 007.
Precisely. And we've got a mountain of intel. Reviews, behind-the-scenes stories, even some Wikipedia rabbit holes.
Sounds like we're well-equipped.
Our mission, to uncover why this wasn't just a new Bond, but a whole new Bond formula.
A reinvention, you might say.
Exactly. Our sources all point to this being a turning point for the franchise.
A reflection of the changing times, perhaps. The early 70s were a different cinematic landscape.
Definitely. Now, right off the bat, there's this stark contrast everyone points out. Connery's Bond versus Moore's.
Yes. Connery, with that raw edge. Always ready for a good brawl.
Concealed thuggishness, as one reviewer put it.
Quite. Moore, though, brought a different energy. Playful, charming.
More wit than fisticuffs.
Precisely. It's as if they knew they couldn't just replicate Connery.
Had to give the audience something new, something that fit the 70s vibe.
Which brings us to the blaxploitation influence.
Right. Now, for anyone needing a quick catch-up.
Blaxploitation. 70s films, often with black actors in the lead, tackling themes of crime and urban life.
Full of contradictions, though, our sources say.
On one hand, opportunities for black actors and filmmakers, which were rare in Hollywood then.
But on the other, the reliance on stereotypes could be exploitative.
A tightrope walk for Live and Let Die.
Some sources praised the attempt to bring a new perspective to Bond.
Others criticized it for using those same problematic tropes.
Even filming in Harlem was a bold move, considering Bond's usual European elegance.
It did bring a certain raw energy to the film. Those car chases through the streets, for example.
The filmmakers pushing boundaries, you think? Trying to capture that gritty 70s feel?
Perhaps. And it goes beyond the setting.
A black villain heading a criminal empire deeply rooted in voodoo.
Adds another layer to that blaxploitation influence. Yvette Kutto as Dr. Kananga, a.k.a. Mr. Big.
Now, he's not your typical Bond villain, not obsessed with world domination.
No, Kananga's all about building a drug empire. And Kutto brings a chilling realism to the role.
Especially when you compare him to the more outlandish henchman.
Ah, yes. Tee-hee with his metal hand. A prototype for Jaws, perhaps.
And then there's Baron Samedi, the voodoo priest. Jeffrey Holder played him with such gravitas.
It's like they plucked him straight out of a horror film and dropped him into the Bond universe.
A real mix of styles. You've got that classic Bond suave, but with this darker, almost supernatural edge.
And speaking of mixing things up, the Bond girls in this film are a departure from the norm as well.
It's not just about beautiful women falling at 007's feet anymore.
No. Take Solitaire, the tarot card reader played by Jane Seymour.
Her psychic abilities aren't just for show, either. They're central to the plot.
And her relationship with Bond is more complex than we've seen before.
Not just arm candy. She's got agency.
Her powers make her valuable. And a target. She's caught between Bond and Kananga, forced to make difficult choices.
Some sources mentioned mixed reviews about her, though.
Yes. Some critics felt Solitaire's character could have been more fleshed out.
Given her unique role, that's understandable.
Still, she represents a shift in how Bond girls were being written, compared to the earlier films at least.
And we can't forget Rosie Carver.
Ah, yes. The first black Bond girl to be romantically involved with 007.
Definitely a complex character, and her role sparked some debate back then.
A reflection of the times, perhaps, and the blaxploitation genre itself.
Okay, enough about the characters. Let's talk action.
Action. Oh, Live and Let Die delivers on that front.
Some of the most insane stunts in the entire Bond series. That speedboat chase through the Louisiana Bayou is legendary.
And that iconic boat jump, soaring over a whole line of cars.
Pure movie magic.
Not quite. That stunt actually set a Guinness World Record.
Wait, seriously, they wrecked how many boats filming that? 17?
Yeah.
Just for rehearsals.
And they had the real-life owner of a crocodile farm risking his neck for those close-ups. Dedicated, to say the least.
Talk about commitment. They really went all out for this one.
It shows. The energy in those action scenes is palpable. A different kind of thrill than the meticulously planned heists we'd seen in earlier films.
Speaking of missing elements, there's one glaring omission in Live and Let Die. Where's Q?
Ah, you noticed that too. No gadgets, no clever inventions. Just Bond, his wits, and his fists.
It's like they were deliberately moving away from the gadget-heavy, almost fantastical style of the earlier films.
Embracing a more grounded approach. More in line with the gritty, realistic action that was so popular in the 70s.
Think Dirty Harry. The French Connection, that rawness audiences were craving.
Almost a deconstruction of the Bond formula, stripping away those familiar elements, forcing us to see 007 in a new light.
No fancy cars, no gadgets, no martini sipping scenes, just raw, stripped-down Bond.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Did that decision help or hurt the film?
Did it make Bond more relatable, or did it take away some of that 007 magic?
A question worth pondering. And this departure from the classic formula extends to the music as well.
Oh, right. No John Barry score this time.
Nope. Filling his rather large shoes. None other than Paul McCartney.
A Beatle composing for Bond. A bold move by the producers, wouldn't you say?
Definitely a sign that they were ready to shake things up.
Yeah.
Inject some contemporary cool into the franchise, and McCartney's Live and Let Die became a massive hit.
Even got an Oscar nomination. That explosive rock anthem perfectly captures the film's energy.
But it's not just the title track. The entire score is a fascinating blend of styles.
McCartney's rock sensibilities combined with orchestral arrangements by, wait for it, George Martin.
The legendary Beatles producer himself. A unique sound that sets Live and Let Die apart.
Like they took the classic Bond sound and injected it with rock and roll swagger.
Modern, edgy, perfectly reflects the overall shift in tone.
And you know what else perfectly reflects that shift? Sheriff J.W. Pepper.
Ah, yes. Clifton James as the bumbling, boisterous sheriff. He's the embodiment of the film's comedic side.
And he got people talking.
Some loved his over-the-top antics.
Others found him jarring in an otherwise action-packed film.
He's a divisive character. Perhaps he represents the film's willingness to embrace humor, not take itself too seriously.
Which, thinking about it, is another departure from the Connery era.
A lighter touch.
Like they were saying, hey, we can be suave and action-packed, but we can also have a laugh.
A fascinating balance they were trying to strike.
So much to unpack with this film. It's more than just a new Bond. It's a complete reimagining of the franchise.
Taking risks, challenging expectations.
And it seems those risks paid off, at least at the box office. But the bigger question is, did those changes ultimately benefit the film?
Or would it have been better sticking closer to the classic Bond tropes?
That's a debate for the ages, and one we'll definitely be diving into as we continue our deep dive into Live and Let Die.
A question with no easy answer. Did Live and Let Die truly benefit from straying from the formula?
I can just picture those Bond purists back then, clutching their shaken, not stirred martinis.
Wondering, where's Q Branch? Where are the gadgets? But then you have those who welcomed the fresh energy. The willingness to get a little gritty, embrace those 70s vibes.
It's more than just a Bond film. It reflects how franchises evolve, how they adapt to keep up with the times.
You make a good point. Makes you think, were the filmmakers going for something even bigger than just a new Bond?
Were they trying to make a statement about race, power, the changing face of heroism?
That's a really interesting thought, and it becomes even more intriguing when you consider the original plan for Live and Let Die.
Oh, right. We haven't even touched on that yet. They wanted to film it in Haiti, right?
They did. Initially, the producers envisioned shooting the entire film in Haiti.
A location far more connected to those voodoo themes woven throughout the story.
Precisely. Imagine Bond navigating the bustling streets of Port-au-Prince instead of those Louisiana bayous.
Hold on, my mind's going into overdrive here. Haiti instead of those swamp boat chases. That would have been incredible.
It adds a whole new layer, doesn't it?
Think about the atmosphere, the visuals, even the music might have been different.
And Baron Samedi. His character, steeped in voodoo imagery, would have been even more potent in his actual cultural context.
He's already larger than life, putting him in an environment that amplifies his mystique. Wow.
The voodoo elements wouldn't just be a stylistic choice. They'd be deeply rooted, shaping the narrative in ways we can only speculate about.
It wouldn't just be a Bond film anymore. It'd be a commentary on a nation, a culture, a people often misunderstood, misrepresented in Western media.
It's a tantalizing what if, isn't it? Did the producers miss a chance to tell a truly groundbreaking story by opting for a more familiar, controlled setting?
Makes you wonder what kind of impact a Haitian-set Bond film might have had, not just on the franchise, but on how people viewed Haiti, its culture.
It could have been a game changer, a film that challenged stereotypes, broadened perspectives. Instead, we have the Live and Let Die we know.
A film that, even with its flaws, its missed opportunities, still dared to push those boundaries, reshape the Bond formula.
It speaks to the flexibility of the franchise, its ability to absorb new ideas, new styles, even new musical directions, all without sacrificing that core Bond DNA.
Speaking of music, we can't wrap up this deep dive without revisiting that iconic score, Paul McCartney and Wings.
A Beatle scoring a secret agent film. It was a bold move by the producers.
They were sending a message. We're ready to break with tradition.
And inject a little contemporary cool in the process. It's not just a title track that's worth noting.
Right. The whole score is incredible. It's this amazing mix of orchestral grandeur.
And that rock and roll energy. Sweeping strings. Classic Bond motifs.
But then you've got these driving guitar riffs. Funky bass lines you wouldn't expect in a 007 film.
A true collision of worlds, almost like a metaphor for the film itself.
Classic Bond sophistication.
Juxtaposed with that raw contemporary sound. A reflection of the 70s.
It's like McCartney and George Martin were trying to capture the essence of blaxploitation, that blend of urban grit and soul, and they translated it into a musical language that both honors and elevates the Bond sound.
Brilliantly, I might add. The Live and Let Die score is a masterpiece in its own right.
Proof that taking risks, embracing new influences, can revitalize even the most established franchise.
Bond, like any good secret agent, has to adapt. Reinvent himself to stay ahead of the curve.
Sometimes that means embracing the unexpected, even if it ruffles a few feathers along the way.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for this deep dive.
Oh, I do love those. Hit me with it. What mind-bending question are we leaving our listeners with today?
Imagine, just imagine, if Live and Let Die had been directed by a black filmmaker.
Whoa! Now that is a thought-provoking question.
With all its blaxploitation influences, its exploration of voodoo and black identity, what would that film have looked like?
We're talking about taking a film about power, about identity, about challenging the status quo.
And having it told through a lens informed by the black experience.
That could have been revolutionary. It brings up the whole conversation about representation in Hollywood. Who gets to tell these stories? How the storyteller shapes the narrative.
A conversation that's more relevant than ever. We're seeing more diverse voices in the film industry now, challenging those traditional narratives, pushing for inclusivity.
Makes you wonder, what if Live and Let Die had been a part of that movement? A film that not only entertained but sparked dialogue about race, culture, representation.
A fascinating what if highlights the missed opportunities, the potential for progress that was there, even back then. Yeah. But even without that hypothetical shift in perspective, Live and Let Die is still a significant film.
It dared to be different, challenged the formula, embraced new influences, and it paved the way for a more modern, more diverse Bond.
Maybe, just maybe, it planted the seeds for a future where those what-if scenarios become reality.
It's a reminder that even the most iconic franchises can evolve. They can reflect the changing world around them.
And in their own way, contribute to important cultural conversations.
So next time you watch Live and Let Die, don't just see a Bond film. See a product of its time, a reflection of the 70s.
A glimpse into a world where the possibilities for representation were just starting to emerge.
It's been a fascinating dive.
Indeed. And with that thought, we leave you to ponder the many layers of this complex film.
Until next time, deep divers, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
It really gets you thinking, what would that story have looked like through a black director's lens?
What nuances, what perspectives might they have brought that maybe a white director, even one with good intentions, just wouldn't have seen?
It speaks volumes about representation, right? So who gets to tell certain stories, how those stories are shaped by who's behind the camera.
A conversation that's still so relevant today, even more so than back in the 70s.
That's
We're
right.
seeing more diverse voices in film now. It's great. Challenging those old narratives, pushing for real inclusivity.
Absolutely.
And it makes you think, what if Live and Let Die had been a part of that movement?
Imagine.
A film that didn't just entertain, but really got people talking about race, culture, representation.
A fascinating thought experiment.
Shows the missed opportunities, the potential for progress, even back then.
But even without that hypothetical shift, Live and Let Die still holds its own.
It's a film that, even with its flaws, its hiccups, really dared to be different.
It did.
Challenged the formula, embraced new influences. And in a way, it paved the way for a more modern, more diverse Bond.
It did. Maybe it even planted the seeds for a future where those what-ifs actually happen.
Yeah.
Where they're not just hypotheticals.
That's a hopeful thought. It's a good reminder that even these huge, iconic franchises, they can evolve, they can reflect the world around them.
They can, and they should.
And in their own way, they can be a part of these really important conversations.
Absolutely.
So, to wrap things up, Next time you watch Live and Let Die, try to see it as more than just a Bond film. See it as a snapshot of the 70s, those cultural shifts happening.
A glimpse into a time when the idea of representation, well, it was just starting to take hold.
It's been a fascinating dive, as always.
Indeed.
And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder the many layers of this truly complex film. Until next time, deep divers, keep exploring, keep questioning.
And keep diving deep.